A question lingers in the shadows of the human heart, not whispered, not easily confessed. What if love is not freedom, but a prison built by your own longing? You stand before the gates of commitment. The path behind you glows with the chaos of youth, unclaimed nights, fleeting passions, choices left open like unwritten chapters. But ahead, a doorway into permanence, into love sealed with vows, promises, and the silent terror of forever. Do you step through or turn back, pretending you never wanted what waits inside? Two men wrestle with this question, not in the shallow language of romance, but in the raw depth of the soul. Soren Kierkegaard, Leo Tolstoy, both lived within the shadows of doubt. Both stood before the specter of love and asked, is commitment salvation or surrender? Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That is the danger here. You do not simply choose a partner. You choose a life, a version of yourself you must live with, defend, and never betray. Kierkegaard called this the leap of faith, a decision not born of logic, but of terror and transcendence. He believed love was not safe. It was not gentle. It was a storm demanding that you step into it fully or live forever as a coward. But Tolstoy saw love not as a storm, but as a mirror, one that reflected your sins, your lust, your hypocrisy, and your unspoken longings. Commitment for him was not only about what you promise your beloved, it was about what you confess to God and to yourself. Two philosophies, two paths, one fear. You know this fear. Perhaps you felt it in your chest like a tightening noose when someone asks, where is this going? Perhaps it rises not when you're alone, but when you realize you won't be alone anymore. Not truly, not ever. So, why do men hesitate? Why do they linger on the threshold of forever, staring at both freedom and loss, wanting both but able to choose only one? History gives no easy answer. Only two men who bled on these questions. One believed faith alone could justify the leap. The other believed only moral clarity could hold the soul steady once the leap was made. The shadows lengthen as their words begin to echo. Kierkegaard whispers of existential courage. Tolstoy murmurs of confession and redemption. And you are asked to listen, to weigh their truths not as a scholar, but as someone who feels the same pulse of dread beneath his own ribs. Does commitment end freedom, or does it begin it? The stage is set. Two giants stand across from each other. Philosophy against confession, anxiety against guilt, salvation against surrender. And somewhere, in the flicker of candlelight between their shadows, you feel your own reflection. Before we step deeper into their minds, tell me, what you fear most? Losing freedom, or finding out who you really are when you give it up? Share your thoughts in the comments. Which path do you think will speak to you more? Kierkegaard's leap or Tolstoy's confession? And remember, Legend's legacy is not here to hand you answers. It is here to haunt you with the questions no one dares to ask. Shall we step further? Shall we descend into Kierkegaard's dread and see why love terrified him more than loneliness? You stand at the edge of a cliff. The sea below is black, endless, unforgiving. One step forward, and everything changes. No map, no guarantee. Only the unknown swallowing you whole. This is how Soren Kierkegaard saw commitment. Not as a gentle path towards safety, but as a leap into the abyss of your own soul. He called it angst. Not mere fear. Fear as an object, a face, a name. But angst? It is the dizziness of freedom. The vertigo that strikes when you realize no one else can make this choice for you. Kierkegaard writes, anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, because freedom means there are no excuses left, no parents to blame, no society to hide behind. No divine hand to force your step. You stand alone, and you choose, knowing that once you leap, you cannot go back. For Kierkegaard, love was not the simple sweetness of two hearts finding each other. It was a terrifying demand to reveal yourself fully, to stake your existence on faith. Not faith in God alone, but faith in yourself. Faith that you will not betray what you vow. Faith that you will stand when storms come. But how many dare? Kierkegaard himself wrestled with this. He loved Regina Olsen passionately, desperately. Yet he broke their engagement. Why? Because he believed true love required spiritual courage he did not yet possess. Because commitment was not about comfort. It was about becoming worthy of the promise. Do you feel that weight? That fear that you might not be enough? That stepping into love means stepping into judgment, not from others, but from yourself? Kierkegaard's writing suggests that many men do not fear losing freedom. They fear losing the illusion of themselves. Because once you choose, once you promise, once you say, I am yours, there is no hiding, no more pretending to be someone braver, stronger, more whole than you are. But here's the paradox. Kierkegaard believed commitment was also the doorway to becoming that person. That by leaping, you transcend who you were. You become more. Yet the leap is irrational. It defies logic. It cannot be calculated or proven. He writes, faith is precisely the contradiction between the infinite passion of the individual's inwardness and the objective uncertainty. Meaning, you leap because you cannot be sure, and yet you leap anyway. Picture this. You are standing at an altar. Your pulse hammers in your throat. You know everything can break. Dreams, promises, even your will. But you also know if you do not step forward, if you do not say the words, if you do not stake your life on love, you will forever live as a spectator, watching others risk, watching others fall, watching others rise. Kierkegaard believed that man's fear of commitment was man's fear of eternity pressing into the present. Not eternity as endless time, but eternity as ultimate meaning. Because love, when real, is eternal in its demand. So ask yourself, what you fear most? That love will fail you, or that you will fail love? This is where Kierkegaard leaves you, not with comfort, but with tension. A tension that pulls you toward faith, toward courage, toward the terrifying realization that only by risking everything can you gain anything. But Tolstoy walks another road, one littered not with leaps, but with confessions. He will not speak of faith alone. He will speak of sin, of guilt, of the moral burden that bleeds into love. The next step is darker, more human, more raw. Before we follow Tolstoy into the corridors of conscience, tell me, do you believe Kierkegaard was right? Is love worth the leap? Even when no proof waits on the other side. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if these questions haunt you, stay with Legend's legacy. Because next, we step into Tolstoy's torment. The room is silent. A candle flickers. A man bends over his journal, hands trembling, ink staining his fingers like guilt. This is Leo Tolstoy, the giant who gave us Anna Karenina and War and Peace. Yet tonight, he is not a novelist. He is a penitent soul, a man confessing his sins to the page because he fears speaking them aloud would shatter him. Tolstoy did not see love as a leap of faith. He saw it as a mirror, a brutal, unflinching mirror, reflecting not who you hope to be, but who you truly are. Tolstoy wrote candidly of his battles with desire, not romantic desire alone, but lust, hunger of the body, the kind of hunger that haunts a man long after he has indulged it. He once confessed, I cannot recall those years without horror, loathing, and heart-rending pain. For him, commitment was not about conquering fear. It was about conquering himself. Marriage was not simply the union of two hearts. It was a spiritual battleground where passion, temptation, and moral ideals clashed violently. Tolstoy believed a man cannot give himself to love until he has faced his conscience, because love, real love, does not hide you from judgment. It exposes you to it. Every unspoken desire, every selfish impulse, every shadow of betrayal lurking inside you. Commitment for Tolstoy was a moral act, one that required honesty so raw it could scar, one that demanded confession, not only to your beloved but to your own soul. He wrote, "The strongest of all warriors are these two, time and patience." But in matters of love, he believed a third warrior must stand beside them, truth. Here lies the darkness. Men do not only fear losing freedom, they fear losing innocence. They fear that once they commit, every lie they tell themselves about who they are will be stripped away. Tolstoy knew this fear well. In his later writings, he revealed a life torn between desire and virtue, confession and concealment. He believed that marriage without moral clarity was not only doomed, but damning. You feel it, don't you? That whisper in the dark, that thought you'd rather not face. What if the reason men hesitate is not because they fear what lies ahead, but because they fear what lies within? Tolstoy would argue that love is sacred precisely because it is dangerous. It drags sin into the light. It forces the man who hides behind charm, wealth, or wit to see himself stripped bare. And yet, this is the only path to redemption, not the redemption of reputation, but the redemption of soul. Kierkegaard spoke of courage as leaping into uncertainty. Tolstoy spoke of courage as standing before a mirror and not turning away. Which is harder, to leap without knowing where you will land, or to stand and confess what you already know about yourself? Tolstoy believed the second, because facing your own weakness is harder than facing the unknown. Picture him again. Tolstoy at his desk, pages scattered, words bleeding like wounds. He writes not for fame, not for art, but for absolution. And in those words, you see a man who understood that love is not simply a promise to another. It is a moral covenant with yourself, a declaration that you will live not as a shadow, but as the truest form of who you are, no matter the cost. But what happens when this moral weight collides with Kierkegaard's leap of faith? What happens when one man says, "Risk everything for love," and another replies, "Confess everything before love can even begin"? This is where their worlds clash. This is where the debate becomes dangerous. Because what if both are right? What if love demands not only faith, but confession? Not only courage, but absolution? Before we step into their collision, tell me, which vision feels closer to your heart? Kierkegaard's storm of faith, or Tolstoy's mirror of morality? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if these questions tear at you, stay with Legend's legacy. Because next, the two collide, and the sparks are blinding. Two figures now stand across from each other, one cloaked in faith, the other in confession. Kierkegaard whispers, "Leap." Tolstoy answers, "Confess." Both stare at the same horizon, love, commitment, the eternal bond between two souls. Yet the paths they carve could not be more different. Kierkegaard says commitment is an act beyond reason. You do not wait for proof. You do not demand guarantees. You leap, and in the leap, you discover who you are meant to be. Tolstoy rejects this. He warns that to leap without confession is to carry poison into promise. To bring hidden guilt into a sacred union is to build a house on fractured stone. One speaks of transcendence, the other of redemption. And you stand between them, feeling the pull of both truths. The dark psychology of commitment lies here. Love demands freedom, yet it also demands surrender. Kierkegaard saw no contradiction. For him, freedom reaches its highest form not when you avoid responsibility, But when you embrace it fully, knowing you chose it freely, Tolstoy would caution, but what if your choice is clouded? What if you leap not from courage, but from lust, from fear of being alone, from pressure, pride, or societal expectation? In such cases, he would argue, freedom becomes a disguise for self-deception. The leap becomes a fall. Both men agree on one haunting truth. The real fear is not the other person. It is yourself. Kierkegaard feared a man might live as a spectator, never daring to commit, forever haunted by the life he could have lived. Tolstoy feared a man might commit without cleansing his soul, condemning himself to a life of hidden shame and quiet moral decay. One says, leap and faith will carry you. The other, confess and truth will sustain you. But neither offers comfort. Both demand pain. Both demand sacrifice. And that is why men fear commitment. Not because of rings, not because of ceremonies, but because love, real love, demands a death of illusion. Illusions of safety, illusions of control, illusions of innocence. Imagine them in dialogue. Kierkegaard, you fear uncertainty, yet life itself is uncertain. To love is to affirm the unknown with courage. Tolstoy, and yet courage without truth is folly. A man must first confess who he is, or the unknown will consume him. Kierkegaard, but confession itself is endless. The soul is a labyrinth. At some point you must leap, or you will never leave the edge. Tolstoy, leap, yes, but not before you look into the mirror, not before you face the sins that would follow you into the fall. Which voice cuts deeper? Which strikes closer to the heart? Do you side with Kierkegaard, believing courage must come before clarity? Or Tolstoy, believing clarity must come before courage? There is no easy answer, because love is neither safe nor simple. Because the human soul is not a clean battlefield. It is a fog of fear, desire, faith, and guilt. What, then, is the path forward? Perhaps neither man offers a final answer. Perhaps both merely point to the same abyss, each illuminating a different face of its darkness. Faith and confession, courage and truth, risk and redemption. Maybe love requires all of them. Maybe that is why commitment feels like death before it feels like life. But we are not done. One final step remains. The verdict, not a conclusion, but a closing of shadows, where both men leave us with words that echo beyond time. Before we enter that final chamber, tell me, whose vision lingers with you now? Do you leap with Kierkegaard or confess with Tolstoy? Share your thoughts in the comments and stay with Legend's legacy, because next, the final words will fall and they will not let you leave untouched. The room darkens. Two voices remain. One, sharp with faith. The other, heavy with confession. They do not shout. They do not fight. They simply exist, two visions of love, staring into eternity, waiting for you to decide. Kierkegaard stands first. His presence is not loud, but piercing. His words are like a blade pressed against the soul. To choose is to create yourself, he says. To refuse is to dissolve into nothingness. The man who does not commit becomes a ghost, haunting the life he might have lived. He leans closer, voice dropping lower. But beware, the leap cannot be measured. It cannot be planned. It demands faith, a faith so absolute it burns away doubt and fear. Only then does love become real. Only then does it become eternal. Then Tolstoy rises. His tone is softer but heavier, like a confession whispered inside a cathedral. And yet, he says, what is faith without truth? What is courage without confession? The man who leaps without knowing his own heart will bring shadows into the light. He will carry lies into the sacred. He will poison the love he seeks to protect. Tolstoy's eyes darken. Love is not only passion, it is purification. It is not only desire, it is sacrifice. You cannot leap into it until you are willing to look into the mirror and not turn away. They stand across from one another, not as enemies, but as echoes of the same truth. Kierkegaard believes love demands risk first, transformation after. Tolstoy believes love demands confession first, redemption after. One leaps, one kneels, both bleed. Where do you stand? Can you leap without hesitation, trusting that faith will forge the man you need to become? Or must you first confess every fracture, every failing, every fear that might corrupt the promise? Maybe you feel the pull of both. Maybe you sense that love, real love, demands both faith and confession, that the courage to leap and the courage to face yourself are not opposites, but companions. And yet, the question still burns. Which comes first? Two voices speak one last time, not as philosophers, but as men who once trembled before the same abyss you stand before now. Kierkegaard whispers, "To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself." Tolstoy answers, everything that I understand only because I love. The candle flickers. Their words hang in the air, heavy as iron. No verdict is given, no clear path revealed. Only the knowledge that love would demand everything from you. Your courage, your confession, your faith, your truth. And perhaps that is a final lesson. Love is not a choice between Kierkegaard and Tolstoy. Love is the place where both men meet, where fear becomes faith, where guilt becomes grace. Now the question turns to you, whose vision pierces deeper. Who do you feel was closer to the heart of commitment? Kierkegaard, with his leap into the unknown, or Tolstoy, with his confession of the soul? Leave your answer in the comments, because this debate is not theirs alone. It is yours. It is ours. As the echoes fade, the voice of legend's legacy lingers. Here, we stand with those who face eternity in their hearts and dare to ask the questions no one else would. Questions of love, of fear, of faith, of truth. If these debates stir something within you, share them, speak them, carry them forward. And do not forget to follow this journey, for there are more shadows to explore, more legends to summon, more legacies to confront. For now, leave with this final challenge. Are you ready to leap, or do you need to confess first? The answer waits, but not here, not tonight.